Good afternoon, everyone. I think lunch has gotten a little delayed, so you'll have to talk with me for a bit. I've got some cue cards with me. I feel a little silly holding out of cue cards, especially after some beautiful presentations here. But I'm famous for sort of forgetting my lines from time to time, so I hope you'll excuse me. Anyway, today I want to be talking about something that I call the main character method. And during my talk, I try to see if we can unpack that and see if we can deliver some level of value to all of you. So, firstly, um, do you know what is the connection between, say, Elon Musk and Thanos? It is that both of them believe that that their work is actually in the service of salvation of the world. Do you know what is the connection between Lex Luthor and probably Jeff Bezos, apart from the obvious? It is that both of them are filthy rich and they're also into world domination one way or another. But there's actually, if you really think about it, as we go a little bit deeper, we'll realize that there's something deeper that connects all of these things together. What is it that I think links fictional characters to real people? Something that allows us to idolize and vilify, regardless of people's perceptions, manage those. That specific tool is essentially stories. Stories have shaped civilizations, they have passed legacies, they have sparked revolutions. Even before maps, even before recorded history, even before data, there were stories. Around campfires, in dances, in rituals, in reels, in poems and songs, we have stories. And so today, I want to be talking to you about exactly that, about stories. I want to sort of explore what is the importance of having a story. How is it that we can find our own story? And most importantly, how is it that we can seize control of the narrative of our lives and stop feeling like a side character? And this is essentially the gist of what I want to be doing. And the reason why I do this is not because probably it's cool to be talking about it, but because I believe that it's essential. Each of you here, almost every single one of you, is probably sitting here because they're looking for answers, or you're trying to find the right questions to be asking. You're here to get better, and that's something I can get behind. So, what I want to be doing is try to see if there's a certain amount of value that we can put together, and through my talks, empower you with the right kind of tools so that you can build the kind of life that you've always wanted to live. So my first question to all of you is, do you know what is the most important story for any of us? The most important story is the one that we actually tell ourselves. It is who we are, what we think of ourselves, what we are worth, and also what we believe can be made possible in our lives. We all have a constantly running narrative in our heads. It may not be always loud, but it is consistent. And I believe that as of today, and I'm sure a lot of you would relate to this, is that this inner narrative is under siege. We live in a world that is designed to help us understand about thousands of potential futures that we have, so many different options. It's an endless buffet out there, pulling us in 100 different directions. All of these options, all of these potential futures, all of these voices are designed mainly to do one thing and one thing only. Actually, two things. Either paralyze us into inaction or provoke impulsive action. So the sad reality is actually that today, all of you, and I'm sure every single person in this room, in fact, on a daily basis deals with anxiety, hyperactivity, trauma, and a bunch of other things. And come on, I mean, how kind of sad is that, right? So I have a question before I lead off to the next part, which is, how many of you have taken a break from social media or have been planning to take a break from social media? A show of hands. Yeah, that's it. I'm sure there are more. But yeah, there you go. In a world that is designed for endless scrolling, we have algorithms that quite literally hijack our essential biology. All of our dopamine, oxytocin, make us addicted to so many different things. We have so many different voices that are being forced upon us. Highlight reels. We have curated lives which are being forced upon us. Now, if you couple this with the fact that there's also the constraints of traditional society and all of the constraints that actually brings with it, then we soon come to the conclusion that a lot of us aren't really in control of our lives. Other people dictate how we live, how we talk, how we walk, and what we do. And I don't think that is done. This sort of a very reactive, hollow, unfulfilled life is not something which is, how do I put this, appealing, I think, to any of us. Which is why I believe that it is, if stories are the ones that shape us, then it's time that we also understand how we can shape our own narratives and our own stories. And that's where I want to bring in what I call the main character method. The main character method is a very simple three-part framework, so to speak. It is first, discover yourself. Second, craft your story. And the third, embody your identity. That's it. I'll repeat that again. It's discover yourself, craft your story, and embody your identity. So let's unpack the first part, discover yourself. As obvious as it seems and self explanatory it might seem, this is actually the hardest part of the process. Um, but I also believe that the solution to it is deceptively simple. It is just build curiosity. The problem, though, with building curiosity is that aimless curiosity is the enemy, channeled curiosity is what we want. And that we can do in mainly two ways. First, permit your mind to wander. Sit with yourself for a minute, and this is really hard to do, at least for me, but just sit with yourself for a minute. Remove the music that you listen to, the reels that you're probably watching, the shows that you're probably watching. Just sit with yourself and let your mind wander. There's a very interesting research that was done by the team in University of California, and they introduced a concept called autobiographical planning. What it essentially means is when you let your mind wander, not aimlessly, but curiously, you do not end up lost, but you end up home. It is during this particular aspect, this autobiographical planning or your mind wandering, that you actually come back to the questions that matter, the problems that you probably have not resolved so far, the things that bother you, your life goals, your aspirations, your dreams, whatever those might be. You actually come back to it. And it's in this drift where you're aimlessly going about this, right? That's where you start mapping out your life. So the first thing I want you to remember, permit your mind wander so that you might discover yourself. The second part, curate your contrast. What I mean by that is more often than not, all of us have a certain clash in the kind of thoughts we have and actions we do. A lot of the times, our thoughts are at odds with each other. Probably to give you an example, let's say you're a girl who likes a boy. You are probably a very kind, structured, um, a very well organized person, so to speak. But maybe the kind of boys that you usually end up going for is that typical tall, handsome, perfect cocktail of chaos and spontaneity. Why is that? Food for thought, right? So sit down with yourself. The second thing I want you to do when you try to discover yourself is curate your contrasts, right? Now, funnily enough, a lot of you are curious about yourself, but what happens is that we are also a little afraid of finding out who we actually are. There's another fascinating research that was done in Ohio State University by Dr. Jennifer Crocker, and it's really interesting to read through. But ChatGPT helped me get the essence of it, which essentially saying that whenever we actually start to go through something, whenever we start to explore ourselves, any self-knowledge that threatens our self-esteem, we tend to avoid. That's a very fancy way of saying that you're most likely a terrible person. You do not want to find out that you're a terrible person. So you delude yourself into believing that you're not a terrible person. That's the essence of that. So this is where you start to discover yourself. These are, I think, channel curiosity using these two methods is how I think you would be able to discover yourself. This allows us to move on to the second part of the main character method. Craft your story. So now that you have an idea of who your true self is, an inkling of it at least, you can actually start to craft your story. But do you know, I mean, all of you know, watch out shows, watch out. Do you understand the difference between a main character and a side character? What I want you to remember is side characters are the ones that life happens to. Main characters are the ones who make your life happen. So this is sort of a general statement I want you to sort of keep at the back of your head when we're discussing this aspect of main characters. When we're crafting your story. First, you start with your why. You need to find a purpose. Every hero requires a cause to serve, a purpose to fulfill. So what you need to be doing is finding your why. One catch though is a lot of you might be like, hey, I'll go into the mountains and find myself. Or there is some sort of, you're always in the search for, oh, I have a higher calling, glorious purpose that I just need to find. I need to find some sort of a passion that's going to really take me places. No, I'm sorry to be the harbinger of bad news, but I do not believe that any of us here have some sort of this higher calling in place. What we do have is that we can find out what is it that helps us or motivates us to move in a particular direction, that helps us to excel in a particular chosen field or activity we are doing. That forms your purpose. To give you an example, and I find it really funny when people say that, hey, I found my purpose and I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life to it. I mean, when you were 8, your purpose in life was, how is it that I can find my favorite orange candy? And that was what you dedicated your life to. Hook or crook, you stole money, you begged, borrowed, steal, you needed to find a way to get the chocolate or get the candy that probably your parents did not allow you to get. When you were 15, you were probably madly in love, and your purpose in life was, how is it that I can chase and get the girl that I was madly in love with? Now it's probably something else. Or let's take a slightly more concrete example. Take Bill Gates. At one point, he was building Microsoft, and his purpose in life was, hey, how is it that I can make my first billion? How is it that I can build great software? How is it that I can put Windows in almost every single computing device in the world? Today, his purpose is entirely different. His purpose is, how is it that I can change the world through charity? So that's my point. Purpose evolves throughout your life. So keep in mind current character arc that you're in, right? So that you can define your purpose as per that. And do not be afraid to change your purpose. It does not. We are people, when we change people, our motivations change, we start to also aspire for greater things. You do not need to limit yourself by limiting your purpose as well. So that's the first part of crafting your story, finding your why. The next part is what I call doing it. It's a very simple exercise called persona mapping. Every hero also has certain traits that they're remembered by. For example, if you think of Superman, you think that Superman is a very just hero. Spider-Man is friendly. Batman is cool, right? So when somebody thinks of you, when somebody speaks of you, they need to start associating you with certain things, certain symbols, certain things, certain activities, certain experiences, certain feelings. That is what I call persona mapping. It's essentially a very rudimentary form of mood boarding, so to speak. What you do is you first pick 3 to 4 attributes that you want your persona or the kind of person you want to become to embody. These attributes, you start mapping them out with specific things. Start taking pictures, start taking symbols, start taking pictures of things, put them all together, start actually maybe create a Figma board and start putting those together. Now, what also happens in this process is that it allows you to take a deep dive into the kinds of things you need to be doing to become the kind of person you want to be. Right? And this is essentially a very quick exercise to just put all of that together, give you the clarity that you need. So this is where you start getting a clarity on the kind of person that you'll eventually become. Third, once you finish your persona mapping, you are now ready to start building out your character arcs. So the third part, crafting your story, this is super fun, depending on the kind of person you are. It is pick your challenges. Every hero requires dragons to slay. The bigger the dragon, the more epic your story. So the first thing you want to be doing is you start introducing novelty into your life, right? You add a little bit of spice by figuring out what is it that you want to be doing. What are those hard things that you want to be doing? Trials and tribulations always make for great stories. In fact, just last year, I was attending a conference in Dubai where I was speaking, and I'm not sure how many of you follow the news very religiously or have a slightly better memory than that for goldfish. But Dubai, which is a magnificent city in the middle of a desert, experienced the worst floods and the highest amount of rainfall it ever has in its recorded history of 70 plus years. I was stuck in that particular flood. I was in a particular metro station. There was, if I remember correctly, the water levels in the streets were anywhere between half a meter to a meter and a half in certain places. And this is the kind of situation there was. I was stuck within a metro station. I think I was in the north of Dubai, and I had to get down to the south of the place. That's where my hotel was. And I decided that hey, I probably do not want to be put into a small room, cramped with people, with the other authorities telling me what is it that I should be doing, whether I'll be getting water, how is it that I get to use the washroom, all of these things. So I just took my mobile and my power bank and Google Maps and against the world we set out into the rain. 27 kilometers. I remember this because Google Maps tracked it. 27 kilometers is what I trekked in water that ranged between waist high to chest high. There were casualties that were mounting as and when I was going through. There were constant news updates coming in about certain areas where electric poles had been exposed to water. So therefore, the entire area, because non-pure water is a great conductor of the city, was killing people. But I was already in the middle of it, and this is what I went through. 7.5 hours later, 4:30 a.m. is where I ended up finally. Now, the reason I bring this up is because that kind of a survival. But today, it's a great story. It's a great adventure packaged into a story. And that's what I'm saying. Trials and tribulations make great stories. Start to pick out what are some skills you want to be mastering. Find out what are the things that make you uncomfortable. And how is it that you can start going about conquering those? This is going to be the last part of crafting your story aspect. This allows us to move on to the next part, the final part of the main character method. Embody your identity. Every hero requires that they craft their legacy as well. It is time to live your story in this part of the main character method. Identity is not something you find, it is something that you choose and live with. The rituals and boundaries that you set in place as you do so are what solidify the stories that you build into your identity. So every action that you do is actually a vote of confidence for the kind of person you want to be becoming. And for this, also to embody your identity, I have a small little framework that I call the 12-to-1 framework that you can potentially do. A year has 12 months. For every single month, pick something small but valuable you know. This will form your monthly highlight. pick two things that are probably a little bit hard, but it's something that you might have to work a little towards. But hey, this forms your part of the highlights. And then you pick one thing, ladies and gentlemen, one thing and one thing only that's going to be the crown jewel of your story for that particular year. That is going to be your and that's it. This is the main characteristic. You do not have much to be doing. You just have three things to be following. You have to discover, craft, and respect your identity. Live, breathe, and align your actions with the kind of story that you've chosen. Who you are, always remember, who you are is shaped by what you choose to be doing with your life, by how you show up every single day to live the story that you've chosen for yourself. You're meant to mean something. That something could be someone, it could be yourself, and it could be the greatest story of the world. So all I have to say in conclusion is write boldly, edit wisely. Don't just be in the story. Be the one who shapes it. I'm going to repeat that. Write boldly, edit wisely. Don't just be in the story. Shape the story as well. Thank you.